So obviously some news today that filtered through around about 9, 10 o'clock this morning was news that I brought to you a few weeks ago in the FA Cup, which is a match between Sheffield Wednesday and Newcastle at Hillsborough. And basically there was some disturbing accounts and footage that came out. Evening Tommy, evening Mark. Some disturbing sort of footage and articles coming out from Newcastle United supporters that were travelling to that game. Now, obviously, we all know the tragedies, what happened 30 years ago with Hillsborough. You think that they would have learned their lesson, but I'm going to read out an article here which will show you that Sheffield Wednesday clearly haven't, and it's quite disturbing, really, that, you know, from accounts of the Newcastle fans, not only did they save lives more or less on the day, having to rip up segregation, sort of the banners, the barriers they put up to segregate parts of the stand, they had to rip them out themselves. The image I've actually put in this video, you can actually see, the tunnel part, which is where it's really, I mean, I've never been to Hillsborough myself, but I'm told it's very tight coming out onto out the concourses onto the Leppings Lane end. Now you can actually see a bit of commotion in the image that I've put up, where that was where a lot of kids were screaming and crying, and this was a very, very, very fortunate and lucky day on behalf of of Sheffield Wednesday Football Club, because this could have been a very bad day. And the disturbing news which came out this morning was that Sheffield Wednesday more or less tried to cover it up again, and we're not answering phone calls from the Daily Mail, who were trying to find out evidence. And if it wasn't for Newcastle United fans demanding what's called a transparency document, so basically wanted the findings of the safety and the check and the findings of that night and that day on the FA Cup, then we'd have never got the news we've got today. So I'm just going to read it out, so I'm going to a little bit more detail. So it says here, the headline says, Sheffield Wednesday didn't reveal full findings of a safety review that resulted in Hillsborough's Leppings Lane end capacity being reduced from 4,700 to 3,700 after crush during FA Cup clash with Newcastle. The Sheffield City Council revealed its findings in a newspaper on Monday. Several recommendations were made, such as the removal of congregated fencing, but the football club and City Council did not mention it in their statement. Now, if you can remember, back in January, a statement came out from Sheffield Wednesday where it said that, there was no reports of anything and they're fully complied with everything, and more or less we've not been told that we have to do anything after that. We were cleared on every part after the match. Now, Newcastle United could have actually accepted that as the end of the discussion, but their fans decided not to do that. They decided to chase this all the way to the top and get a order in place, which is where they had to sort of transparently give the findings in that incident, and it's actually disgusting. I'm just going to read through it now. Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield City Council did not reveal the full detail of the findings of a safety review that has led to the capacity of Hillsborough Leppings Lane being reduced. Newcastle United supporters raised concerns following their FA Cup third round tie on January the 7th, when 4,500 Newcastle away fans were in attendance and provided statements which detailed crushing, overcrowding, accessing points and inadequate management. This prompted a Safety Advisory Group, SAG, meeting on January the 20th, chaired by Sheffield City Council, but only now after a Freedom of Information request was made by Newcastle. That's what I was trying to explain to you there. They demanded a Freedom of Information request so that they got the findings transparently given to them, because Sheffield Wednesday were denying that there was anything found at all. But there was actually 15 recommendations were made in total, including a removal of congregated fencing, a review of ticketing errors, with the capacity of Leppings Lane being reduced from 4,700 to 3,700, However, when the Football Club and City Council released a joint statement on February the 10th, none of the above was even mentioned. So in the statement they released in January the 10th, Sheffield Wednesday never even mentioned that they had to reduce the capacity of Hillsborough. They never mentioned the fact that they were told to remove congregated fencing, and they haven't mentioned at all. Back in their statement that they made on the 10th of February, they were denying that anything was even told to be done to the stadium. They lied. And if it wasn't for Newcastle United and their fans pursuing this with the order of a freedom of information, right, and getting that freedom of information, we wouldn't have found out the news that we found out this morning. So it says here, as a review at Hillsborough Stadium over concerns about crowd movements has concluded, stating all aspects of safety at the stadium complied fully with the club's safety certificate. Minor recommendations were made relating to the overall matchday experience. So it goes on to say here, Liam Dooley, Wednesday's chief operating officer, said at the time, "We are pleased that the findings support the confidence we have in our procedures. However, Newcastle United and its supporters trust were not satisfied, and the club made an FOI request, which is freedom of information request, to provide fans with greater transparency around the safety issues. As a result, only now can the full extent of the SAG meeting and capacity reduction be revealed. 50 accounts of supporters were considered, which included a testimony of fans being directed through the wrong turnstile, overcrowding leading to the distress among children, a lack of direction from stewards, tickets sold in areas that were netted off, and police and stewards being unresponsive to requests of information." Alex Hurst, who's the chairman of the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, said the club have done brilliantly. They could have just accepted Sheffield Wednesday's version of events, but they didn't. The fact Sheffield Wednesday did not publicly announce that the capacity had been reduced is really worrying. That is a very serious outcome that the Safety Advisory Group at Sheffield City Council felt it necessary to make that recommendation. You would expect the club to reveal that and also apologise to the Newcastle United fans who had to go through this process. Sports Mail understands that there were frustration among those raising concerns at what they perceived to be nothing to see here attitude from Sheffield Wednesday. We contacted the club at the time and received no reply. They did not respond on Monday night either. The government sports stadium regulator, the Sports Ground Safety Authority, also investigated the reports of overcrowding and were present at the SGA meeting. They said fans should expect safety, security and good customer service when they go to a football match. We welcome the measures that they have put in place to improve the matchday experience of away supporters. Sheffield Council were approached for comment on Monday night and didn't bother commenting. So, I mean, like I say, I'm just bringing this up because if it wasn't for the Newcastle fans pushing for the freedom of information to be disclosed here, Sheffield Wednesday more or less adopted the nothing to see here, you know, kind of approach, and more or less trying to cover up the fact that they got away with, you know, a very serious event nearly happening again. And obviously every Liverpool fan doesn't want to see that happening again, and especially any other team as well. We don't want to see football fans getting into trouble, and we don't want to be taking our kids to stadiums and fearing for their safety. The fact that Newcastle United had to remove netting off seats that were sold as tickets spaces, the fact that they couldn't get an answer out of the police on the day, the fact that they couldn't get information, were sent to the wrong areas of that stand, were tightly cocooned into these tunnels leading out the concourse. I mean, God help if there, you know, if there'd have been fences that day, we could have had a major tragedy. And I just don't think that Sheffield Wednesday should be getting away with this. And the reason why I've done this video today is because I want people to understand that this needs to be severely punished, because Newcastle United as supporters shouldn't have to ask for a freedom of information to get the truth. And that's just one thing that I'm disgusted by. So I'm just going to get to the comments quickly. All right, Tom. Hi, Mark. Hello Max, and hello Veronica. I hope you're all well. So it's just a short video. I'm going to do a video next on the ticket increase today, which is a little bit dramatic from some of our fans. It works out around about a pound a match, which is, considering the fact that Liverpool's bills have gone up 100% for their utilities and everything else has gone up. I'm sure we can all squeeze a quid. And one great comment today from a supporter was, if we could all chip in like £1 each now to get Jude Bellingham. I think we'd all chuck that in. So if you look at it like that, then I can see certainly why FSG have put the tickets up by a mere 2%, and it is what it is. So I'll speak to you all soon and join me on the next trip, but I just think that the public needed to hear this today, and Sheffield Wednesday did their best to cover it up. You'll never walk alone.